Welcome back to our debate in the fight for Washington State's 3rd congressional district. This is a toss-up that could help decide who controls Congress after the election on November 5th. And we'd like to get to the issue of abortion right now. And this is for Mr. Kent. 2 years ago, you said you would push for a national ban of abortion. Last month, you released a video saying that you would not support a national ban. Why the change in your position?
I support the Supreme Court's decision. The Supreme Court has been very clear that the issue of abortion is back down at the state level. So the issue of abortion at the federal level, it's completely off the table. Abortion is not on the ballot at the federal level, and that's according to the Supreme Court. So what I do support from the federal level is lowering the costs associated with childbirth and also with raising kids, expanding the child tax deduction for working families, making items like baby formula and diapers, making those tax deductible. The issue of abortion, it's very divisive. And so I think anytime that we take a divisive issue away from Washington, D.C., and we push it back down to the state level, I think that's the right decision. I am pro-life. However, I think the Supreme Court made the right call in putting it back down at the state level. In Washington state, abortion is not in question. If you're able to get and receive an abortion in Washington state. So what I can affect is lowering the cost associated with raising kids and having a pro-family tax policy. That's what I want to work on in Washington, D.C.
Mr. Kent, what would you say to a woman who lives in a state like Idaho, where most abortions are banned by the state? She doesn't have the financial means to go to another state. She doesn't have the social support that would help her, and her life is in danger.
If her life is in danger, she can get the care that she needs. I'm running for Congress in Washington state, and abortion is not on the ballot at the federal level, and it's not on the ballot in Washington. Again, what is on the ballot is lowering the cost associated with raising kids, expanding the child tax deduction for working families, taking down the cost associated with childbirth, making adoption much easier and more streamlined. That's what we can do from the federal government. Different states are going to have different policies, and I think when you have a divisive issue like that, that's the right place for it.
Congresswoman Perez, would you have any limits? Would you support any limits on abortion? And would you vote for federal law guaranteeing abortion access?
Your first question is what motivated his change in his position. The clear answer is that it's because the pollsters told him to. We know what he believes. He's on tape months after Dobbs saying that he supports a constitutional amendment to ban abortion. He supports, he signed a pledge, actually, to support a national ban on abortion. So we know what he believes. I know, as a mother, my kid was 8 months old when I ran for office, and I know that these dudes in D.C., do not know what they're talking about. They don't know what preeclampsia is. They've never heard of placenta previa, and they have no business making these laws because, the feds aren't going to fix that. We've got to ensure that our rights are protected here, and we've got to codify Roe. That's my work, Joe, this is not a trade-off between your tax credits and our freedoms. There is no tax credit on diapers that's going to make it okay for you to take away my freedom to access health care.
So would you support a federal law guaranteeing abortion access nationwide?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mr. Kent?
I support the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's already ruled. It's back down at the state level. So here's the thing. The Democrats very much want to put the issue of abortion on the ballot. But whether you agree with what my opponent just said, or if you have a more pro-life view, putting forth that legislation in Congress is a waste of time. The Supreme Court will simply reject it. The issue of abortion is back down at the state level. So what we can affect is we can take down the costs associated with childbirth and raising children. So that's what we can actually affect. Again, the Supreme Court's ruled the issue of abortion is simply not on the ballot.
Do you disagree with that?
I absolutely disagree with that. It is on the ballot. Our rights are not secure here. Joe wants to believe him when he parrots what the pollsters tell him. But we know his buddies and him, they have a very clear agenda of ensuring that our rights in Washington state aren't protected. So I'm going to stand up for those. I'm going to support families. It is not, we don't need to make this choice between making it easier to raise a family here and between having freedoms. That's not America. That's not the America I'm fighting for, at least. I guess he is.
Mr. Kent, you then would not support a vote for a federal law guaranteeing abortion access?
The federal government has no business after the Roe versus Wade decision being overturned, the Dobbs decision. The federal government has no role in the abortion issue. Again, all of that is back down the states. It's not on the ballot in Washington. If we want to talk about protecting women, we need to talk about a vote that my opponent took to allow biological men into our daughters' dressing rooms and to compete against our daughters on the athletics field, and to let men into battered women's shelters. That is not protecting women whatsoever. That is extremely radical. We actually need to protect biological women.
Congresswoman Perez, how do you respond to what Mr. Kent just said?
Yeah, he doesn't want to talk about his flip-flopping on abortion, and so he starts attacking people. Like, that's what he does. The bill that he is trying to attack me over is one that would have opened the door to genital exams in girls as young as 5. I want penmanship and arithmetic in elementary school, not genital exams. I don't think that's going to have a more level playing field for girls in sports. We got to fight for that. But on this, my views are libertarian. Like, the feds aren't going to fix this. It's the role of, families and schools and sports organizations to make those decisions, not to come in with the feds.
Do you agree with transgender athletes playing sports?
I mean, which sport? Like, the question comes down very clearly, like, what are we talking about? And that's why it should be decided at the family level, at the school level, at the level of the sports agency itself.
So you don't believe it's a federal issue?
No, I don't think this is a federal issue.
Mr. Kent?
What she said is inaccurate. The genital checks that she's talking about, that's simply not in the bill. The bill is very simple. Go to Marie Watch or look it up on your own. You can read the bill yourself. The bill simply prevents biological men from entering protected spaces like women's locker rooms, dressing rooms, battered women's shelters, and from competing against them on the athletics field, and prevents men from taking athletic scholarships from young female athletes. It's a very common sense bill. However, her and every single Democrat in the House voted to let men into your daughter's dressing room and to compete against them on the athletics field. It's one of the most radical things that we've seen in quite some time.
That's simply not true.
Read
It's
the bill.
simply not true. He goes on and on about opposing these like kitchen sink bills, and then when we see these like truly dog-faced bills come through, they use it as a weapon to attack people when they don't want to talk about the issues they've been very clear on. So, I'm proud to stand up for girls in sports. I'm proud to defend a level playing field. And I'm also proud of helping keep the federal government in their lane on these issues and protecting the authority of families and schools and sports teams making these choices.
Let's move on to Israel. On October 7th of last year, Hamas militants attacked Israel, killing more than 1,200 Israelis and taking 250 hostages. Since then, Israel has destroyed entire cities and villages in Gaza. The UN says that 42,000 people in Gaza have been killed. The regional conflict has escalated to include Lebanon and Iran now. Should there be any limits or conditions attached to the U.S. support of Israel? And Mr. Kent, we'll start with you.
October 7th never would have happened if President Trump was in office. Under President Trump, we had the historic Abraham Accords. The Biden-Harris administration came in, gave Iran access to billions of dollars, and they were then able to orchestrate the catastrophic October 7th attacks. Immediately after the October 7th attacks, House Republicans allocated $14 billion that was already spent, so no new inflationary spending, from Biden's weaponized IRS that she voted for, and they authorized sending that $14 billion in immediate aid to Israel so they could recover American hostages. My opponent and every single Democrat, while saying they support Israel and they support the hostages, they drug their feet and they used the crisis in Israel as a bargaining chip to get a broader foreign aid package for Ukraine and other hotspots throughout the world, which was nothing more than an inflationary corporate payday for her defense contractor donors. We need to support Israel, let them finish off Hamas and Hezbollah, but we need to cut off the money going to Iran.
Congresswoman Gluesenkamp Perez, should there be any limits or conditions attached to the U.S. support of Israel?
Well, we just came on the anniversary of October 7th, as you mentioned, and I think it's really important that we ground this in the fact that that was the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. I think most of us agree the fastest way for this war to end is for Hamas to release the hostages they are holding right now. That would end the war. Israel has a right to defend themselves. And, I think that our national security is advanced when we have a liberal democracy in the Middle East. Israel is the only liberal democracy. And when we think about the long view of protection for women and people in the LGBTQ community, I think it's advanced by having a liberal democracy there. So I stand with our allies. And I know that, by the way, our foreign adversaries are really eager to jump into that vacuum if we walk away from them.
Do you support a limit on weapons that we send to Israel, or conditions on those weapons that we send to Israel and how they're used?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a munitions expert, but I do have this idea that it's not more humanitarian to take out the apartment building on top and leave the tunnels underneath where hostages are being held, where terrorist cells are hiding currently. I don't think it makes sense for us to try to use some fulcrum. Our military contributions to Israel are less than 10% of their GDP. There's not that fulcrum that people think there is to dictate how they're operating and how they're trying to get their hostages back.
Mr. Kent, would you support a ceasefire if there was an agreement for a ceasefire in that region?
The problem is a ceasefire takes two parties. And so right now when you have Hamas continuing to hold on to the hostages, there's no realistic discussion of a ceasefire. But look, I want to answer your other question about a limitation. And right now, I think we are on the cusp of crossing a very dangerous red line. We have already authorized the deployment of the THAAD missile system, which has to be used by American service members. So we are now putting American boots on the ground in Israel. And no one in Congress voted on that. We're letting the executive branch take us off the war. And potentially, we could get sucked into this conflict if an American is killed manning those systems, if a ballistic missile from Iran hits them. And no one has voted on this expansion of the war. So we have to have a limitation and not have U.S. boots on the ground unless that is voted on in Congress as dictated by the Constitution.
And I have to call time. Yes, Lisa.
Question to you both. First to Mr. Kent. Are you in favor of continuing our military support to the Ukraine in their fight against Russia?
I'm not. I think it's immoral for us to be discussing all these different countries we're going to send billions of dollars to when we have people right now with real needs. We're talking about defending the borders of all these other countries while our southern border is wide open. Until we get our own house in order and we can actually secure our own border, stop the fentanyl, deport the illegals, start to put our citizens first, take care of the homeless people that are on the streets suffering right now. I went to war 11 times for this country, served for 20 years. It breaks my heart to see how much we sacrificed overseas just to come back home and have our own citizens living in squalor. We are $37 trillion in debt, adding $1 trillion every 100 days. We simply cannot afford to send billions more to Ukraine. Look, for the last 2 years, we've sent unlimited funding and unlimited weaponry. We have only gotten a generation of Ukrainians killed, and Russia now controls more terrain inside of Ukraine than they did at the beginning of the war. And we have Americans shooting, American missile systems being shot into Russia. We need to take down the nuclear tensions, get both parties to the negotiating table, and stop the killing. That has to be our priority.
As a follow-up on that, there are a lot of people in the military arena that say, look, if we withdraw support from Ukraine, Russia takes over Ukraine, it gives the green flag to Ukraine, go ahead, continue on taking over in parts of Europe. It lets China, perhaps, North Korea say, hey, the U.S., not such a big thing anymore. We don't need to worry about them. What's your response to that?
My response to that is you can debate what Putin or Russia intends to do all day long, but we've seen on display what Russia's military capability is. At the beginning of the war in February of 2022, the Russians failed to actually conduct a maneuver warfare movement, an armored column from their border to Kiev. They demonstrated that they do not have the capability. They also have kept their military incursion limited to the border areas. If they go any further and they hit Poland, they're going to hit NATO countries. That's World War III. Russia has not shown any intent that they're going to do that. However, we are shooting American-made missiles with no authorization from Congress into Russia territorially. That was a red line by the Biden administration.
I have to call time on you, Mr. Kent. Congresswoman Gluesenkamp Perez, about our support of Ukraine.
Absolutely. I mean, Joe's plan to hand the keys to continental Europe to Putin is not going to make us safer at home. It's not going to end homelessness, and it's not going to bring down the cost of groceries. It would leave us profoundly vulnerable. He is making the exact same arguments foreign adversaries are making. He quoted Russian state media, and now he's being quoted by them. If we walk away from our leadership role, China is waiting in the wings to pick up that vacuum. And, I agree with Republican Speaker when he said, we need to be sending American munitions now, not Americans later. And it's that foot dragging that has made things worse. But my opponent has called Putin a reasonable guy. He called Zelensky a thug. Like, we are never going to agree about that. And our Ukrainian community here in Southwest Washington, I mean, this is hurting them personally. So it is really disturbing to see a candidate for federal office parroting Russian state media.
Can you add any perspective relative to your time in Congress currently in terms of the foreign situation right now?
Yeah, I actually led a group of bipartisan members of Congress in establishing a discharge petition called the Defending Borders, Defending Democracies. It's military aid to our allies and military and support for infrastructure at the southern border. Like, we can do both things, and we've got to do both things. That legislation I put forward actually turned into the 5 bills that we turned around and voted on to support our allies and support our border security.
This is to both of you, and we'll start this with Mr. Kent. Your homeless problem in Southwest Washington is not as pronounced as what we have in the Portland metro area, but there was a report that came out today showing that there are still thousands of homeless people in Southwest Washington, particularly in Clark County, where Vancouver is based. So what would you propose as a solution to getting the homeless people that you do have off the streets in Southwest Washington?
Yeah, we have to start prioritizing our people that are in crisis. And look, we're talking about sending billions and billions of dollars overseas while we have our citizens living in squalor. So that bill that she talked about that secures the border and does all the different foreign aid, it allocated zero money for our border. It was a payday for defense contractors. Because look, that's the priority in Washington, D.C. How do we deal with homelessness? We need to actually prioritize our citizens, get back to actually opening up federal mental health crisis centers and federal mental institutions so we can get the people that are in mental health crisis actually off the street, give them some place to live so they're not just kicked out onto the streets. We need to stop the flow of fentanyl and lethal narcotics. That goes of securing the border. Unfortunately, my opponent has failed to do that. And then we need to get the people who are actually addicted to drugs the treatment that they need. A lot of the resources that exist right now in Vancouver or in Portland, they simply exist to keep these people on the streets. There's no actual incentive to get them clean and sober. We actually need to invest in taking care of our people. Stop sending hundreds of billions of dollars overseas. Take care of our citizens.
Congresswoman Gluesenkamp Perez, how would you answer that question about trying to solve your homeless issues in Southwest Washington?
Yeah, our homelessness issues look different. Like, if you go into the Gifford Pinchot, you'll find a lot of RV encampments of homeless people there. That's how those don't show up in the counts, but it's real, and it's hard and ugly, and it's personal. I mean, we have got to build more housing. That's the reality. Housing abundance is a key avenue out of this. And that's why I'm a relentless champion for Shop Class, where we learn the skills to own and build homes. I think we also need a serious look at particularly the regs around manufactured and mobile housing. I think that's one of the most achievable forms of housing abundance in rural America. Dean and I actually had to build our house ourselves because banks don't like loaning to self-employed people in the trades. But because we had a good shop teacher and a good drafting teacher in high school, Dean was able to draw those plans himself with a pencil. That's the kind of agency we have to return to the American people. I mean, we really are a nation of builders. We have this cultural asset that I don't think is being exercised because people in D.C., they're not so much like us.
What about the affordability of housing, though? That is a real issue. The
Yes.
price of housing for people who can afford it, it's through the roof.
Truly.
Rents are pretty high.
Yeah.
30 seconds just to address that issue.
Yeah, people are working 3 jobs and still not being able to make rent. Like, that's not right. But every housing unit we build brings down the cost. It gives us more agency. It's a way of moving and shifting power back to the middle class and not to these big corporate landowners. But, you know, like, I really believe we just have to build more housing. And it's one of the reasons I support YIMBY. It's a bill I'm leading on that prioritizes federal housing dollars to the communities that streamline their permitting and zoning bills. The average affordable housing unit that's federally involved in our state costs something like $500,000. We built our house for $120K. We can do more.
Mr. Kemp.
Look, we've added probably 10 million to 12 million illegal immigrants into our country in the last 3 years alone because Democrats have refused to secure the border. And right now, there is more people chasing the same amount of housing. That has made the cost of housing skyrocket. If we start deporting the people that don't belong here, that's going to take down the cost of housing and create more housing. We also need massive government deregulation. She's talking about deregulation, but she voted against actually getting rid of the bureaucratic control in Washington, D.C. D.C. via the RAINS Act. We need to get our forests back up and running so we're harvesting timber, we're utilizing our local mills. We need to get back to actually producing what we need here in America, build our own housing, and again, prioritize our citizens, not foreign wars.
I have to call time, and I see you shaking your head. I'll give you a few seconds just to react.
Yeah,
to that.
I mean, it's the shoddy carpenter who blames his tools. He keeps bringing up the RAINS Act, but we already have that agency. It's called the CRA, and I exercise it with great pleasure. Like, I'm going to stand up to a bill that I don't think is right for us. And do you guys notice that he has the same solution to every policy problem? Even my 3-year-old knows the difference between Torx, Phillips, and Flathead. Everything is a nail to this guy because all he's got is a hammer.
We'll have to stop there and go to closing statements, and we'll start with Mr. Kent for your closing statement.
Well, thank you guys so much for hosting. Thanks to everybody for tuning in and being engaged in the election process. Look, our country has real problems. You feel it every single day when you're out there in your community. My small community in Yakult, we actually have people that are having to put the food they grow in their garden, the eggs that their chickens lay in a small food bank because people can't make ends meet. The economy is really hurting them. The border is out of control. We've lost a toddler recently in Vancouver. That's baby Ruth Richards, was killed by fentanyl. We've had countless other of our loved ones killed by fentanyl. And one of the first votes that she took in Congress was to leave the border wide open. What matters way more than the rhetoric is what her actual voting record is. We can fix inflation by getting the spending under control, actually capping spending, not spending $4 trillion over like she voted for. We can secure the border. We can do mass deportations. We can stop the flow of fentanyl. And we can also restore common sense and protect men from entering the women's locker room. That's just common sense. And that's what I want to restore in Washington, D.C. I fought for you for 20 years. I'd be honored to fight for you in D.C.
Congresswoman Gluesenkamp Perez, your final statement.
Well, I'd like to speak directly to Republicans in Southwest Washington. 2 years ago, Joe Kent moved here to purge the Republican Party of people like my parents and people like a lot of you. He put a Proud Boy on his campaign. You've heard him reference his off-brand website. You can do your own research. Google Joe Kent Proud Boy, Joe Kent white nationalist, Joe Kent Nazi sympathizer. I know those aren't my values, and I know they're not your values also. I'm a small business owner. I work in the trades. I'm proud of that. I'm a proud mom and wife. I'm proud of living in a rural community where we get our water from a well and exercise self-sufficiency. Joe Kent thinks he's entitled to your vote. Joe Kent thinks he knows better than us. He doesn't even know us. You've heard him mispronounce the name of the town he moved here to. I mean, I'm so proud of where we're from. As a 6th-generation Washingtonian, I'd be honored to earn your vote, and I'm so grateful for your attention to our democracy. It's critical.
Thank you to both candidates, and that concludes tonight's debate. Here are some dates that Washington voters need to know. Ballots will start being mailed out on October 18th. You can register up until and through Election Day in Washington State if you do it in person. But to register online or by mail, you must do so by the 28th. All ballots must be postmarked by 8 p.m. on Election Day to be counted. Election Day is November 5th. And some important dates for Oregon voters. Tomorrow is the last day you can register to vote. Ballots will start to be mailed out later this week. All ballots must be postmarked by Election Day to be counted. Again, that is November 5th. And we have another important debate coming up tomorrow for Oregon Attorney General. I'll moderate a forum with Attorney General candidates Will Lathrop and Dan Rayfield. So look for that at 7 p.m. on KOIN 6. And if you want to go back and watch or rewatch the full debate, you'll be able to find it on KOIN.com, along with both candidates' appearances on our Sunday show, Eye on Northwest Politics. Again, I want to thank both candidates for taking part, along with my colleague Lisa Balick. Have a great night.